Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our low code, no code day as part of Devtoberfest. And all day today, we've been having sessions on SAP AppGyver. This morning, we had several sessions already covering various topics like getting started, building an app with AppGyver. We saw a sneak preview into some of the new functionality that's coming specifically to the SAP BTP version of AppGyver. And of course, tune in to TechEd in a couple of weeks for even more information on all these new features. And then we had the Creator Spotlight earlier this morning, where we got to meet several very creative people from the community that are building apps with AppGyver. Now, we have several more sessions today besides this session that you're here for and about to start, the Making Your Apps Beautiful. We also have a session after this on AppGyver for Pro Code developers. And then wrapping up the day, we'll have a session on tips and tricks from an SAP AppGyver guru. But now I'll turn it over to our speaker today to take you through this, what looks to be a fun and exciting session on Making Your Apps Beautiful. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm called Mevi, and my session today will be about how to make your apps with SAP AppGyver to be beautiful. My credentials are that I've been creating apps with AppGyver for 7 years now, and I'll share you some of my tips and tricks and best practices. So the agenda is that first I'll go through the disclaimer of please do your research. Then my tips and tricks, which are a lot of don't reinvent the wheel, do less work, and have a more beautiful app in the end. And at the end, I will have a mini tutorial on how to make a footer if you have a web app, for example, that you'd like a footer for. So first, the disclaimer. If possible, and you're doing this for work, internal application or something that you're going to publish, get in touch with a UX designer and ask them about resources you should be using, if there's fonts or colors or images. This is to avoid then later on having to go back and change a lot of things because they saw your app and you weren't using the correct images or anything, something like that. Then you have an idea for your app. You know what you wanted to do, but you should have a rough structure of it so you don't have to go back and then rework the whole UI because you forgot that you want to have a view to edit your data or whatever. And when you have this general structure, do benchmarking of other similar apps or parts of a UI. Like if you are going to have a chat in your app, look at other chats that exist. If your app works completely differently from all the other apps that have chats, your users will not know how to use it. And in general, people hate learning how to use new UIs. So the more predictable it is, the more they know how it works, just looking at it, the better it is. And like if a delete button is usually on red with a trash icon, you should use that and not come up with a completely different icon for it. It's just how user experience works, and don't sacrifice it for beauty or novelty. With the disclaimer done, my tips, don't reinvent the wheel. So everything that I say kind of boils down into make reusable parts for your app and use the provided tools so that if you need to make changes, you can easily apply them across your app. And also, when you do this, your app will be consistent and look good. And my tips are 5. Number 1, use existing components. All the work has been done for you. You don't need to come up with how to make a multi-select dropdown if you use one that already exists. Number 2, if you do customize anything, use theme variables and or style classes for it. This is making everything then easier to apply everywhere else. Number 3, copy and paste. It's a good tip, a good trick, and makes your life in general easier. And the more you do UIs, you will realize number 4, which is that the container is your best friend. So a lot of the alignment and grouping you will do is with the container. And number 5 is if you know what you're doing and you have a part of the UI that you know you will use as is somewhere else or in multiple places, you can create your own component. But this is advanced stuff. So number 1, use existing components. In Composer, in SAP AppGyver, there's the left sidebar, which has all the basic components for building an app. There's an icon, an image, a text, but there are a lot more other components that have kind of more complex functionality that you can find on the marketplace. Like here are 3 examples. There's a collapsible list that has kind of grouped this into different groups that you can see. In the middle, there's this blog post or news post that you can then configure to your needs. And on the right is the multi-select dropdown. And there's tons of other ones. And I will now quickly show you how to find it. The marketplace is up here. You can search the groups below or type what you need. If you need a calendar or something for dates, you can find it. And then if I install it, you'll find it on the Install tab. And if you want to modify something, you can open the component template editor. And if you then want to, for example, place the icon before the label, before the kind of date that was chosen, you can do it. But if you save these changes, just note that this will be applied into every date field on your app. This will come up more when I talk about the custom components, but these types of changes made in the component template editor are applied across your app. Second point, use theme variables and style classes. Why is this? Because it may feel like it's a little more work the first time, maybe. If you want the text and you want it for some reason to be tiny, you want it 9 pixels small, and it feels like it's much easier to just write it there in the text size. But the moment you need to do it another time, you have to remember what you put as the text size. Maybe you put 8 accidentally because you forgot what it was. So use a theme variable. Put a theme variable to be then the 8 pixels you need or 9 pixels you need. And so then if you wanted the same text size somewhere else, you can just use the theme variable again, or even better, make a style class for it. And my recommendations is everything style related, everything on the style tab, you should use a theme variable for it, and preferably a style class. But not for the stuff on the layout tab necessarily. That one doesn't need it, but styles, please. And you can find all the theme related stuff under theme from the top navigation. And here I'll show you the style classes and how they work. So here's a text component. And when you select different kinds of style classes, you can see it change. And when you want to create your own style class, choose the style class that's closest to it, or whichever if you don't mind. And then you can choose to create a new style class, like my own label style. When you have the style class, you can go and edit it and change an angry color, for example, and have a bigger font size, and maybe even change the font to a monospace one instead of the primary font. And now then when you drag another text here and choose the new label style, I forgot to override the changes here, so I have to go back and press override. And here, now the changes are applied to both of them. And similarly, if you go now to change the text color here, it will then, after the override, apply to both. So this is how to use the style classes. And then if you have a label, for example, in one place of your app, and then you want it to be a different color or a different font size or whatever, you can then easily change it everywhere if you use the style class. This is the hindsight 2020 if you didn't do it before you have to change it. So I recommend it to begin with. Then copy and paste. This is a very simple thing that you might not know or might not have noticed, is that if you use your operating system shortcut for copy and paste, you can copy and paste components. This also applies for logic. It has some limitations, like you can't as easily paste logic from an app to a different one, for example. But if you have logic on the canvas, logic canvas of a component, you can also do that. But that's not the topic of this session, so just keep in mind, you can try it out. Number 4, container, your best friend. Anything you need kind of aligned or grouped in your UI will be via containers. This is basically if you want anything else than everything just being below each other. If you want something horizontally aligned, like the image and text here, but then you want the text and icon to be below each other, you will have another container for it. And in a normal UI, a complex one that has a lot of things going on for it, you will usually have a bunch of containers just nested inside each other. And that's how it goes. You will get to know the container very well as you go forward. So get very familiar with how it works. It will help you later on. For the advanced stuff, we will have number 5, which is creating your own components. And as I said, because this is all the changes you do in the template editor, which is kind of what you go into when you create a new composite component, are applied to all of the instances of that component. You kind of have to know what you're doing when you're creating a component. But this is very useful when you do have stuff, for example, that you want logic. You want, in the later example of the footer, you want to have social media icons that work the exact same across your app. You want the social media icon for Twitter to open the Twitter for your company. And if it changes, if you have to change the URL, you want the change to apply the same to all of the footers in your app. So in that case, it might make sense to make this custom component. Or the other situation is if you have, for example, data you want to handle or anything else. But if you want to use these components, and it might be useful if you are doing a more complex app, please check out the documentation for more information about this. Next, I will go into my small tutorial about the footer. I will kind of cover the topics I discussed before, and also I will shortly show using system variables via formulas and how to do absolute positioning on a page. Here, to start with, I'm using kind of the page I was using before. I just added a button so you can see when I'm going to change the colors. And I made the kind of canvas a little wider by going from the left top corner. The iPad Air Mini is the width that I have chosen now. But here, so I'm going to go to the theme now. I want new brand colors for my app. I'm going to go with purple. I want the purple as the primary color and a lighter purple as the primary background. And what you see here is that it's immediately applied to the button and icon. And if I want to change the font, for example, I will go to the theme variables. I will go to font family and the primary font, which is used in texts and buttons and so forth, and change it. And now it's changed in all the components. I didn't have to go through them. Now I'm gonna go into doing the footer component itself. And I will choose a base for it. So as the container style, I will choose the secondary card, mostly because it has the paddings already that I kind of want for the footer. And now I don't have to set them separately. So I will go and edit the secondary card. I will have a nice pink background and no rounding. And now I will make a new style, not overwrite it, because I don't want the secondary card to change. I just want a new one. And then I'm picking a label here and putting a company logo, in which this case, this is just a placeholder image. And since it's huge, I want it to be smaller, and I'm picking 100 pixels as the width here. Then I was kind of justifying the components to left and right, because I want the logo to be on the left and the other stuff on the right. So I'm putting them away from each other, but nothing immediately happens. And this is because this container has the width of grow to full width. Oh, sorry, I skipped into the beginning. I have to find where I am again. somewhere here. I have put it to fit content, so it's not the full width anymore. And now I'm going to go into, well, maybe this is a copyright text. For example, the copyright of your company this and this year. And these are maybe then the social media icons. I'm just going to use the star, but there's several social media. So I'm putting just several of them, but I want them aligned horizontally like this. Now, if you can see, the text is still kind of not aligned the way I want it. So I'm putting it to align to the right. And this is kind of still on the top half. So I want it aligned to the middle, and I do it from here. Now the footer is ready, but it's not placed correctly. So I'm going to go to the absolute positioning now. I want it positioned on the bottom. So I'm putting 0 pixels there and changing the positioning to absolute. And I also need to put the left positioning because the page has a padding of 16, I think. And now I'm putting the stretch to viewport. The viewport height is because by default, this page, it doesn't have a lot of content right now. It has only like 2 texts and a button. So on a normal screen, this wouldn't be the full height. That's why the footer was kind of in the wrong place on top of the button. But because I want it at the bottom of the page, I'm going to set the viewport to stretch to the viewport height, the whole app. And this is done under the page layout, as you can see here. Now it's looking otherwise correct, except it's not the right width. Like I wanted the width of the viewport, but because it's currently grow to width, and as a positive absolute thing, it doesn't know anything around it. So it doesn't know how big it should be growing. So I have to set a specific width for it. But the problem here is then that I don't know the exact width. I can't put a pixel amount there because the user screen can be whatever width. So I'm going to use a formula. Here I find it under this lightning bolt icon. And I'm going to use a system, oops, sorry, not doing great with the video. A system variable here. Let's go a little back to show what the width is. And I'm using, there's a lot of system variables and lots of different dimensions. Like I could be using the dimension for screen, but if it's not, it usually works for phones, but if it's for web, the screen width can be a lot bigger than the width of the browser. So I don't want to use the screen width. Then I don't want to use the window width because as I select the viewport width, you can see here that it says width of the viewport excluding navigation elements. And in web, you can have a navigation element on the left. So this would now be the correct width for the footer. So this is why I'm choosing the viewport width. And yep, going with that. And now the placement is all correct. I'm going to save and now copy paste it onto another page that I have. And just to show you again, kind of the power of having the style class, I have the style class on the outermost container. So when I edit it on this page, once again, I select a different background color for it, this time white, and overwrite it. So now it's applied, the same change is applied on the other page. So right here, it's also white. And then if I later on need to change something, like find out that I should be using turquoise instead of purple, I can just go into the themes, change the colors to purple, and it will be applied on the page as it should be. And of course, like I said before, in this case, a custom component might be useful when you start doing the logic as well, but that's not covered in this tutorial. Before my session is done, I have this offerings of TechEd slide for you. So if you want upskill opportunities, there are some offerings to complement your conference. Please check learning.sap.com/TechEd for them and find all the great content. And thank you. Here's the summary. And if you have any comments, please put them in the YouTube question or like questions in the YouTube chat, so I will answer them. If not, I have been Mevi. Thank you for being here, and here's some further reading for you if you'd like to learn more. Thanks.
Thank you for that excellent presentation. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. Let's see here. We have a very nice comment from somebody that says, as a solution advisor and pro developer using AppGyver for quite some time, I have to say AppGyver rules. It's really easy to use complex functionality like geolocation and barcode scanning. So very nice comment there. There was a question here. Is there going to be a predefined theme with the same design as Fiori Horizon?
Yes, like we have currently a Fiori theme, but we are planning to kind of upgrade it and also kind of add later themes. So the answer is yes. Not at the moment. As far as I know, the current Fiori theme is not that yet, but will be.
Okay. That was the main question we had. With someone also asked, are there any blog posts or tutorials to start with AppGyver? I put a couple of links in there. I provided the link to docs.appgyver.com, where there's, I know, some getting started guides that work on the community edition as well. And I put a link to the starting mission on developers.sap.com as well for AppGyver. Any others that you would want to add to that list? I can drop them in the chat as well.
Yeah, well, I have the links here. It's basically on the docs.appgyver.com. So here's the example apps that we have. There's a lot of that our users have been creating using the community version. So I would go with that and the quick start. So there are a lot of things that are on the docs.appgyver.com side. Of course, for the BTP, if you want BTP specific stuff, there's a section on that also on the docs.appgyver.com and then on the developer portal as well.
And I can copy some of those into the chat or the description because, of course, people can't click into the the video. So we can copy those into the description, so they're hyperlinks as well right after the session.
Yes, it's annoying to type it from here otherwise.
Yeah, I know. All right. No other pending questions at the moment. So anything that you want to say to wrap up today's session, or?
Nothing that comes to mind very quickly. There's a very active community on SAP AppGyver in general, so please search and find out all the cool things that people have been doing, and a lot of people would also be there to answer your questions, even from the community, if you have any that you run into that are specific to your app that you're making.
Very nice. And don't forget, we're just a little over 4 weeks away from TechEd, free online virtual event, or if you're here in the United States, we have the in-person hands-on labs event in Las Vegas at the same time. And there will be much more about AppGyver at the TechEd event. Devtoberfest is a nice build-up to get everyone excited. And if you haven't registered for TechEd, please do so today. But with that, actually, I had a question. The question has just come in. If you want to take one more question.
Cool. Yeah, sure.
They're asking, any tips how to start creating cross-app components pages in AppGyver?
Pages. Well, currently there's kind of no way to paste full pages across apps, but the trick here is that if you have a container that your whole page is in, you can paste the container. Like you can copy and paste the whole container that the page is in. Of course, you will still have to, if you have variables on the page, you will have to make new variables, but it's a lot less work than to have that if you had to redo everything. So that's the tip for it. So
okay,
that
sounds like a very good tip. Glad we had that question come in right at the end. But with that, why don't we go ahead and wrap up today's session. Thank you again for joining us, everyone, and thank you for the excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you all again soon.
All right, bye.